Hello everyone. I am here to enlighten you about one more topic of soft skills. The topic is decision making. This will help you understand the importance of decision making and help you in making right and analytical decisions in the organization. So, let us quickly go through the agenda as to what all subtopics I am going to cover in today's tutorial. Firstly, we will go through the definition of decision making. We will see its characteristics and then we will go through the detailed process of decision making, check the challenges that are faced during decision making and also a few to help you improve your decision making skills. Let us read the definition of decision making and understand what it means. Henry Sisk and Clifton Williams defined a decision is the election of a course of action from two or more alternatives. The decision-making process is a sequence of steps leading to one apt selection. Let me tell you the crux of decision-making. So when we have a problem or a situation on hand and we analyze, gather information and list out the solution alternatives from which we need to analyze each of it to choose the best one that will serve the purpose. Characteristics of decision-making. From the above definitions, the following characteristics can be listed below. Process. When I say it is a process, it can be either end-oriented or continuous process. So, after making decision and implementing them, if we get the desired outcome, then the process ends there and then, but if we do not get the desired outcomes, then we go back to redefining the problem or to checking the other alternative solutions that we listed out earlier. Thus, it is a process. Focal point. Decision-making is a focal point which plans, policies, and objectives are translated into concrete actions. We use all our resources and amenities to extract the best alternatives and decide the best alternative that we can choose according to our situation and goals. Rationality. Rationality is another characteristic of decision-making. The human brain, with its ability to learn to remember and to relate many complex factors, makes this rationality possible. When there are multiple people working upon, they all have different ideologies, different thinking process and different analytical skills, which makes it more complex to take decision. Best possible alternative. As we discussed, while making decisions there are multiple alternatives available and the decision we are making among them has to be the best one, because if that is not so, then all the resources and time and efforts that we invested in taking this decision. Purpose-oriented. Decision-making is obviously purpose-oriented because we are not going through all these pains just to see what all alternatives we have, but to make a concrete decision and select the best alternative, which can significantly contribute towards organizational aims. Next subtopic is the process of decision-making. We will go through a detailed procedure to decision-making so that it can be used perfectly by the beneficiaries. Decision-making process. The business decision-making process is a step-by-step process allowing professionals to solve problems by weighing evidence, examining alternatives, and choosing a path from there. This defined process also provides an opportunity, at the end, to review whether the decision was the right one. Though there are many slight variations of the decision-making framework floating around on the internet, in business textbooks, and in leadership presentations, professionals most commonly use these 7 steps. 1. Identify the decision. To make a decision, you must first identify the problem you need to solve or the question you need to answer. Clearly define your decision. If you misidentify the problem to solve, or if the problem you've chosen is too broad, you'll knock the decision train off the track before it even leaves the station. If you need to achieve a specific goal from your decision, make it measurable and timely so you know for certain that you met the goal at the end of the process. 2. Gather relevant information. Once you have identified your decision, it's time to gather the information relevant to that choice. Do an internal assessment, seeing where your organization has succeeded and failed in areas related to your decision. Also, seek information from external sources, including studies, market research, and, in some cases, evaluation from paid consultants. Beware, you can easily become bogged down by too much information. Facts and statistics that seem applicable to your situation might only complicate the process. 3. Identify the alternatives. With relevant information now at your fingertips, identify possible solutions to your problem. There is usually more than one option to consider when trying to meet a goal. For example, if your company is trying to gain more engagement on social media, your alternatives could include paid social advertisements, a change in your organic social media strategy, or a combination of the two. 4. Weigh the evidence. Once you have identified multiple alternatives, weigh the evidence for or against said alternatives. See what companies have done in the past to succeed in these areas, and take a good hard look at your own organization's wins and losses. Identify potential pitfalls for each of your alternatives, and weigh those against the possible rewards. For the proper analysis of alternatives, Peter Drucker has suggested the following 4 criteria. I. The risk. 2. Economy for effort. 3. Timing, and 4. Limitations of resources. I. Risk. Every solution naturally carries a risk element. The risk of each course of action must be weighed against the possible gains from its selection. 2. Economy of efforts. That line of action will be selected which gives the greatest results with the least effort, and obtaining the needed change with the last necessary disturbance of the organization. 3. Timing. If the situation has great urgency, the preferable course of action is one that dramatizes the decision and serves notice on the organization that something important is happening. If, on the other hand, long, consistent effort is needed, a slow start that gathers momentum may be preferable. 4. Limitations of resources. This is also known as the principle of limiting factor, which is the essence of decision making. The key to decision making is to solve the problem posed by alternatives, if possible by seeking out and solving for the limiting, or strategic, or critical, factor. The most important resources, whose limitations have to be considered, are the human beings who will carry out the decision. 5. Choose among alternatives. Here is the part of the decision-making process where you make the decision. Hopefully, you've identified and clarified what decision needs to be made, gathered all relevant information, and developed and considered the potential paths to take. You are perfectly prepared to choose. 6. Take action. Once you've made your decision, act on it. Develop a plan to make your decision tangible and achievable. Develop a project plan related to your decision, and then set the team loose on their tasks once the plan is in place. 7. Review your decision. After a predetermined amount of time which you defined in step 1 of the decision-making process, take an honest look back at your decision. Did you solve the problem? Did you answer the question? Did you meet your goals? If so, take note of what worked for future reference. If not, learn from your mistakes as you begin the decision-making process again. Factors influencing decision-making. Too much information. Having a lot of information is often viewed as beneficial, but if that information is not collated properly or only available via a multitude of methods, processing it all can become overwhelming. You should be accustomed to accessing the kind of user-friendly data that is key to your decision-making options, or you might feel misguided and confused. Too little information. Of course, extremes are never good. Not having enough information to support your decision is not good either, and you should definitely be up to speed with all the relevant information in order to come up with the best solution for any issue. Wrong identification of problems. In many cases, the issues surrounding your decision will be obvious. However, there will be times when the decision is complex and you aren't sure where the main issue lies, as the actual cause may be elusive. Being able to conduct thorough research, receive useful data and speak with internal experts could be ways to mitigate this situation. Limited resources. A manager may find it difficult to implement his decisions due to lack of resources, time, staff, equipment. In these cases, he should look out for alternative approaches which fit in the available resources. However, appropriate steps must be taken in case he feels that lack of resources may stop the growth of the organization. Over-presumptuous on outcome. We are not by any way devaluing the importance of positive thinking, but rather that you should identify realistic, viable, achievable options rather than ones that are overly optimistic and unrealistic. Impulsiveness. An important influence on the quality of decisions is how much time the decision maker has in which to make the decisions. Unfortunately, managers must make most of their decisions in time frames established by others. Lack of time can force a manager to decide without gathering important facts or exploring possible solutions thoroughly. Unmeasurable outcomes. Sometimes it is possible that the decision taken was correct, but we cannot measure as to how close we are to the optimum decision that was needed for the defined problem. Thus it becomes a hurdle in accurate decision making. Ways to improve decision making. Learn from experience. The best decision makers treat decision making as a science. They record their decisions and the way they made them. They then follow that up with notes about how events turned out. You may not choose to go that far for all your decisions. But, as a manager, good will demand that you do record all key project decisions. However, what you should do is occasionally take time to reflect on recent decisions, so you can learn from them. Give equal attentions to those that turned out well, and those that did not. When you need to make a new decision, always see what you can learn from the past. What decisions have you and your colleagues faced, which share one or more salient characteristics with this one? We tend to believe that every decision is unique, and so forget all of the value of experience. Wisdom comes from learning, generalizing, and then applying to the specific. Have options. In principle, the more options you have, the more likely you are to succeed. But, there's a limit. You don't want too many, beyond around 3 or 4 options, and you hit psychologist Barry Schwartz's paradox of choice. This means you'll find it too hard to make your decision. 1 option is no choice at all, 2 is a dilemma, yes or no. 3 is real choice. With 10 choices, you'll be more worried about excluding good options than about choosing good ones. Argue it out. To make better decisions, encourage rigorous debate and argument. Set different team members the task of building a case for each option. Set others the task of finding flaws in the arguments. Track the argument, so you fully understand each choice and see it from different perspectives. Spot whether the argument is about the data, how it is interpreted, or about people, or vision, or values. Each of these has a different resolution, or none. If it's really important, appoint a red team to find arguments against your preferred view, to test it as hard as they can. Take others' opinion. Bring outsiders into your decision making. Lots of research show they can improve decisions, through 3 effects. Being different, they think differently. They know less, and therefore ask the simple questions you have ignored. As long as you take the time to answer those questions, you can learn from them. Difference also creates a distinct point of view and new insights. They can apply their own experiences and maybe offer creative alternatives, either new ways of testing the decision, or new choices. They are objective, and therefore will care more about the decision than about egos and relationships. Groupthink is one of the greatest risks to good decision-making. If people in the group are too concerned about causing conflict, they can subconsciously place harmony above a rigorous discussion. Outsiders are less prone to this. Experiment. There is no better way to gather strong evidence to help with a decision, than a well-designed experiment. One experiment is worth 1,000 theories and projections. Like, try solving the problem quickly, and see what happens. An experiment is really a way of testing your decision with well-contained consequences. In the project world, we have pilots and prototypes. They have another advantage for us. Stakeholders love them. They engage people and help us gather feedback and build support. And consider the pros and cons. The best case, the pilot is a huge success. You are confident about your decision and your stakeholders have a new enthusiasm. The worst case, the pilot is a huge failure. You are now confident in needing a new decision. You prevented a full-scale failure, and you can thank your stakeholders for helping you avert disaster. It's time for a new pilot. So, this is a win-win approach, and one that is not common enough in the projects I've seen and heard about. Trash it. It is easy to find evidence to support your favored course of action. Once you choose it, people will flock to back a winner. And confirmation bias will ensure you find more and more reasons why you are right. The scientific way is to look for the one data point that will trash your theory. If that data point is repeatable, you will find yourself on the edge of a deeper understanding and, maybe, a step further away from a potential catastrophe. So, instead of trying to prove your potential decision is right, try to prove it wrong. Look for reasons to doubt it. If you can't find any, especially if you tried hard, then you can have confidence it's a good decision. Assume it's wrong. You can go one further, and I need to credit psychologist Gary A. Klein with this idea. He calls it premortem. Pretend you made the decision already. Now imagine it has gone horribly wrong. Ask yourself, what would have caused this failure? There are many reasons a project can fail. Examine the answers you get and see how they can help you improve that decision, or find a better one. At the very least, if you do decide to stick with that decision, you will have the start of a risk management plan that will help you minimize your implementation risks. Know your context. Do your homework, and explore all of the background information you can get. The more you go back to the base information, the more reliable your judgment will be. If, instead, you rely on bullet point summaries, you run the risk of tacitly accepting a bias. Which data did the person who built the presentation choose? And what did they leave out? How did they interpret that data, to summarize it into short bullets? And what alternative analysis is available? Look for different sources of information and different modes of gathering it. Talk to people. Read reports. Make visits. Observe. That's all for today. So today we learned what in decision making, what all are its characteristics, a detailed decision-making process, challenges that are faced during making decisions, and various ways to overcome those challenges. I hope you find this video fruitful and informative. Thank you.